Now I know this review is late, despite it being nearly 2 weeks after release. That's because the average content creator has the attention span of a squirrel on crack, so by now this game is a fossil. But I wanted to wait so I could actually get a feel of the game, instead of playing for one stream's length and calling the game one of two hyperboles. I swear, it's either this game was so good humanity was created so we could bring this into existence, or this game was a worse experience than that time I was eating off 8 story building as a kid. And honestly, I'm glad I waited, because some of the things I disliked at first I grew to like. Except for the time gating system, that's the worst part of the game. Real quick, if you don't know what Tower Fantasy is, it's an MMORPG gacha game. In case you don't know what that is, a gacha game is gambling with waifus, and an MMORPG makes the game more social. Like, for example, my server's world chat is constantly talking. Granted, they're talking about Fudakok, but there is constant socializing going on. Anyway, that aside, in these reviews I'd like to start with the good, then go to the bad. But I'm just gonna start with the bad because there is a lot right there. However, the little prologue to the bad is why this game failed in China, where it was first released. Most people know this story, but in case you don't, allow me to paint a picture of absolute incompetency. So when this game first released, they advertised themselves as the Genshin Killer. I ain't making that up. Those were the marketing words that they used. And in case anyone's wondering if this game killed Genshin, it didn't. It can't. Genshin is so big to the point where the only thing that could kill it is itself, like Warcraft. In case you think I'm a Genshin fanboy, I'm not. I fucking hate that game. I just re-downloaded it so I could remember how it plays in comparison to this game. And I also don't remember giving it administrator privileges. How did it get that? On the topic of Genshin, they also copy-pasted Amber's moveset for a bow weapon in this game. To go even further, they copy-pasted Genshin reviews to the review page of their own game. Honestly, zero clue how they thought they would get away with that shit. They even copy-pasted a weapon model from Honkai Impact 3. And that ain't it. They straight up copied a trailer, then tried to pass it off as their own. People even found a way to lag switch so they could re-roll on banners, which then made people joke that the game was so poorly made you could just cheat using cheat engine. Turns out you actually could. No one tried it because they didn't think it would work. But it was that easy. There's even more bullshit that happened, but this section is too long, so just go and look it up if you want. In terms of how the game has performed on global so far, well, there's a lot of bugs. Outright, the launch was rough with big queue times, but when you finally got into the game, it was still a drunken mess. Constant crashes, the game not registering when you alt-tab back in sometimes, your control scheme not being remembered, and whilst this didn't happen to me, my friend got bukkake'd by visual bugs. He had his world covered in pink, looking like a Pepto-Bismol bottle shotgun suicide itself. The water was filled with the shit that's turning the frogs gay, and he had RGB faces. Furthermore, his game crashed multiple times. I only had one crash so far when I booted up the game, but he must have fucked the wife of Level Infinite's CEO or something, because the game has been throwing all its bullshit at him. Also, the game runs much worse than it should. It's still playable, but for a game like this, it shouldn't have the frame drops it does, despite them being kinda infrequent. Also, there are many hackers, but more on that situation later. Also, a bit after I finished the script, a funny little thing happened. The limited banner got hit by the hand and disappeared 9 days before it was up, in the middle of the night. Thankfully, even during that time, they fixed it within 5 hours and then gave out 800 dark crystals to those affected by it. And they will revert the changed limited currency. And I'm yet to even cover all the bugs in this game, but I have hope that they'll be addressed with time. I mean, that stuff is fixable. It's not acceptable to have in a game, but they could fix it in time. Now on to what is set in stone as ass, the story. When it comes to story in MMOs, I believe there is immense potential. You could grow with the world and characters as it's meant to be played for many years. For example, in Final Fantasy XIV, the story has been going on for so long now, and the song for Endwalker makes a callback to the previous expansions. It has a line that says tales of loss and fire and faith as a reference to them. If I were to relate that to this game, it would be a tale of because this story keeps on taking L's. When it comes to the story, I eventually ended up just skipping the cutscenes, but hold on, hear me out, because I started to watch them later on. Now, let me explain to you how boring I found the story at first. 3 of my favorite games are visual novels, and I even replay good visual novels from time to time. I have read damn near every event in Arknights, the game which has an event that has over 200,000 words in it, and in total has over 1 million. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it has over 2 million now, words in it. I'm not only able to, but excited to read any event the game has, even knowing it will have more words than the Oxford Dictionary. But I did not have the patience to sit through the story of this game, because it was that cliche and boring. However, I still have copium for the story. I think it could still become good, because as most people will say, the worst part in an MMO story is the beginning. That even holds true for Arknights. So I'm able to bear with how ass the start of the story is, because they actually have good writing available. Hoda Studio isn't just filled with people eager to copy somebody else's work. Like, for example, Samir's story is pretty damn good. When I played through that, it gave me hope that in the future, they can improve the main story. Because the points of it I've read, and rewatched on YouTube for what I skipped, are really mundane. Nothing in the world presented grips me. Sure, the locations look different from each other, but they don't feel different. In a good story, I would feel as though the areas have a different culture from one another. Something that makes the land feel different as opposed to just a different landscape. But I don't see that. The game refers to different sections of the map with different names, like Bangus, Astra, and the Warren Snowfields. But if they were all considered the same area, then I don't think anything will change. Except that in some sections the landscape is different, like how the north is cold. Maybe when Vera is opened up, I'll feel like the locations are actually different as opposed to a different scenery, but we'll have to see. Now to get back onto the problems with the story, the animations are a big one. The animations in this game are like a glass pyramid. Now, you may wonder what the fuck that means. Believe me, I'm wondering it too, because I just made that shit up. But to relate it to the animations, they look really good, but it's easy to see how fragile they are. The cutscenes in this game are done by mocap, and they are very lively, but when a character is done speaking, they stutter back to their idle animation in the most jarring way. They look like the fucking Taken from Destiny. They created the animations without giving any mind to the transition effect between animations. And that isn't it for why the cutscenes are jarring. Many bugs exist, my favorite being the time where a character was speaking but their lips weren't moving. Straight up turned into a telepath for that cutscene.
Discovered. It initiated a self-destruct sequence.
There were the times where a character stopped speaking midway through their line, or better yet, they don't say their line. No voice acting exists for it. The fuck? You gonna actually say that one out loud? There are even moments where no subtitles can be seen. And believe me, you want to play this game in Japanese with subtitles. If I had to explain the English voice acting, I would call it to be meant for the PlayStation 2, which is weird to say because they have a very talented cast of voice actors. But the voice director must have been some homeless guy they got off the streets of Detroit. I believe the voice director told them to speak as if they were dead inside, and that is why we have what we got now. There are lines that should be emotional, but are read out like it's a casual conversation. And all of the problems I listed with the cutscenes are present in Samir's story.
And you only feel anger.
What is it that you want?
What do you think I want? You don't understand how I feel.
Which is the only story I think is good so far. The problems with cutscenes need to be addressed, because if you were going to try and sell me an emotional story, but have missing voice acting, stuttering animations, and a monotone voice of speaking, then your story will only be good from a conceptual level, but never good in practice. As of now, the only other story thread which I find interesting is Nemesis, but they blatantly spoil Nemesis' story multiple times in the game. Okay, now time to talk about the devil in the room, PvP. PvP is in this game, but it's a fairly level playing field. Basically, all you have is level to max, so there isn't too much of a discrepancy between whales and free-to-play. The only difference is what characters you may have. I've played a couple of games and came to the realization that I don't like it. I remember in one game I couldn't even see my opponent's projectiles. I don't know if that was a bug, lag, or cheating, but that drained my desire to play it. There definitely looks to be a skill gap, so I could see some people enjoying it, but it ain't my cup of tea. Now on to the last thing I will bash, the time gating. Many people are confused with what's time gated, so let me lay it out. Levels are time gated, but the cap is server wide. So if you play now, you could get to level 44, the cap as I'm writing this. But chess, world exploration, and story are time gated per account. So if you play right now, you will have to wait however many hours to pick up a supply pod I've already opened. Or wait a number of hours to go through a chapter I've already completed. I've never seen such an effort being put into making people not want to play your game since the Arknights ad campaign. Because that's all it is. Making me climb a mountain just to see that I need to come back in 2 days to get my rewards actively makes me not want to play the game. Worst part is the supply pods that are time gated aren't distinguishable at all on the map. Some black nuclei are, but others will say they are available, but they actually aren't, like those bitch ass lava vents. It got to a point where I was surprised to see a chest not having a timer on it. Yeah, your players shouldn't be surprised that when they go to X on the map, they are actually rewarded. Some people are trying to defend it by saying the time gates exist so players won't get too far ahead of each other. That's about the dumbest shit I've ever seen since that TikTok dance apology. My guy, the time gate artificially makes it so new players will be behind those who've been playing since release. Some chests are time gated so much to the point where they will start speaking to your ass in Chinese. I'm not even messing with you. Also, some areas are time gated behind your suppressor level, which, as you can imagine, does wonders in an open world game meant for exploration. Time to talk about what I believe is good and why I'll keep playing. To start off, the combat is addictive but poorly explained. The easiest way to describe the combat is it's basically punishing Grey Raven. You dodge at the right time to trigger Fantasia, which then benefits you. Fantasia is described as dodging before an attack hits you. That's wrong. You actually need to dodge when this red flash appears. This flash can happen before a move is thrown out or right before they will hit you. Only the person who is being targeted can trigger Fantasia, and Fantasia has a timer on it that you could see where all your buffs are listed. The game doesn't tell you any of that. It is like they are actively trying to get your ass killed. The lack of information makes Fantasia feel like shit, but when you understand what and how to trigger it, then combat feels very smooth. Except for the fact that the sheer number of particles you launch out may obscure the red flash, and even the sound effects will drown it out. Also, the targeting system is absolute despair realized into a game mechanic. This system will make you stab someone 10 feet away from your intended target, like you're a coked out British person. That aside, the main reason I think this combat works, as opposed to Genshin's, is because you have more agency in how you fight. To me, Genshin got boiled down to ability spam, but this game has on average more downtime between ability uses, probably because you only have a party of 3. Therefore, there is more time where I'm engaging in the combat as opposed to pressing a button, then watching a mid-fight cutscene play. I feel more involved with my rotation, and since Fantasia gives you benefits outside of your rotation, there is more thinking on the fly as opposed to pressing X skill when it's up, although we need a training dummy so we can fully optimize our rotation. Also, relics can be swapped out and incorporated depending on the boss you are fighting, which has a different approach to how you may want to fight. Even the combat is buggy. There were times I activated a skill and it wasn't used. Same with relics and discharge skills, which is really annoying when you see this cool ass animation happen, but only air gets shot at the opposition. And that's something I want to mention, the animations. I'm willing to wager that the budget meant for story cutscenes was halved and then went into the combat animations. There are some weapons I want to use, not because they are the strongest, but because they look fun to play, and the animations get even better with future characters. Speaking of future characters, let's talk about the gacha, something I'm probably addicted to. I should call a gambler's hotline. There are 5 different banners to roll on, with their own different currency, unfortunately. There is standard, limited, standard matrix, limited matrix, and something to demolish your hopes and dreams. Matrix banners are a scam, so I'll ignore talking about those. When it comes to how generous the game is, it will fucking pimp your account out. In total, I was able to reach Pity on the standard banner 3 times, Pity Unlimited once, and get the free SSR selector. That means if you play, in total you could get bare minimum 6 SSR units because there is a beginner's pity on the standard banner at 30 rolls. Furthermore, the pity doesn't get reset until you reach 80, so if you get an SSR unit on your 79th roll, then your 80th will also be an SSR. That is on top of the fact 6 SSRs are guaranteed. Some of those can be duplicates, but it's still insane that you're able to get that much as a free to play, with even more sources of Dark Crystal yet to be touched. Also, you will be able to spark the limited unit as a free-to-play, in case you lose a 50-50. Although if you start now, you might not be able to, so you could always just re-roll. The Black Nuclei banner uses a currency that you get through exploration, and has a chance to give you an SSR. In total, you will have in the hundreds when it comes to the Black Nuclei rolls. Also, you can get SSRs from World Boss chests. I love when games are generous, and this one gives you shit on a silver platter. But, and there's always a but, all standard banner units will get power crept in the future. It isn't guaranteed they will, because this game unfortunately does buffs and nerfs, which I'm kind of surprised they do, because last time I saw a gacha game nerf a character, they died that same day, so it's kinda wild that I haven't heard too much complaining about this. But if the meta of CN will be reflected the same on global, then many standard banner characters will be useless in the future, which I view as a long-term problem. If such blatant power creeping exists, will there ever be a point where I'm satisfied with my team? Now thankfully, weebs don't need to worry about their waifus being power crept, because in this game you don't actually need to look like the characters you are using. So if you want to look like your waifu, then you could just wear their skin like Leatherface. Also, you could build your own character in the character creator. In terms of creators, this one ain't half bad. So if you've ever had the relatable fantasy of being Hatsune Miku and beating the shit out of a terrorist organization, then you could do that in this game. Moving on to the daily gacha grind, that is, just logging on and draining your vitality and doing your tasks. I don't know how this will be in the future. I don't think it'll take very long as you get 180 vitality a day and join operation takes 90, but I worry it will be like Genshin Impact's endgame relic farm. That is to say, a grind which exists to shit on your hopes and dreams. However, I can't talk about how many rolls you can expect as a free-to-play monthly. There is a great video in the description breaking this down, but you basically get 24 rolls monthly if you do all the PvP content and have max crew level. If you don't do PvP, you only get 17 rolls. That seems bad as Spark is 120 and Pity is 80, but from one-time Dark Crystal rewards you could get 222 pulls. And from what I've heard, the events are fairly generous in how much Dark Crystal they give you, of which 150 is required to roll. Also, when the game reaches the 2.0 version, apparently you will be able to get rolls from the password chests. This, paired with the fact that you only need 120 rolls to guarantee a limited unit, makes me think that this game is very free-to-play friendly, especially when any given team can only have 3 characters. Another thing I love about the game is the exploration, even with taking into account the ugly bastard of time gating. The reason I love it is because of the movement you have in this game with the various techs. Hell, there's even an infinite stamina climbing tech, which I'm fucking glad exists, but the techs, paired with the mounts and movement relics, makes it fun and fast to traverse the area. Because I hate when a game will give you a big ass area, but you have the run speed of the average American to move through it. And as you go through the world, you will get some nice tracks accompanying you, once in a blue moon, that is. At first I hated the music because that shit plays as frequently as rain in the desert. Most of the time the BGM is wind and the occasional genocides you commit in various strongholds. But when I heard some of the music finally being played, I fell in love with it. I mean, just listen to Meant to Be. That shit is goated with the sauce, as the Twitch kids say. And I can't wait to hear the new themes that'll come out. If the game can survive, that is. Because that is my greatest worry. This game has fallen the fuck off in China from all the bullshit they did. But in global, this game has a second chance to be incredibly successful. Because I may have talked about a lot of its flaws, but I still love the core game. Tower of Fantasy is a difficult game to love, but if it can succeed, it will be amazing. But I am worried about the future. I mean, the upcoming event is literally a gacha event free-to-play players can't get all the rewards from. That's a major red flag. Although the free rewards they are giving during it makes me less jaded about the event. That aside, most of the time in the past I'll jump ship from a game with as many red flags as this one. I mean, I did that with Punishing Grey Raven, but when I asked if there were any new controversies, turns out there wasn't. I kinda wish I continued playing, honestly. I also wish I didn't ask that question, as the community did not like it. But I'm willing to have hope that this game will fix all of its problems in the future. Remember when I talked about cheaters? Well, they did a ban wave to get some of them. Problem was that some innocent players also got banned. You know what they got in compensation? 20 rolls. For only being banned for about 2 days. When I look at that response, I have high hopes in the companies. But placing hope in a company is the same as wishing your drunk uncle could pass his DUI test. It just won't pan out most of the time. But I will continue to play this game because I think they can make the necessary improvements to have this game flourish. Which is why I give it a 7 out of 10 as of now. Listen, when I started this game, I was prepared to hate it. I was only going to play it for one stream, but I eventually came to love it. I didn't give it a fair shot at all, but now I plan to play for a long time. The core game is fantastic, so I hope that they can make this game as amazing as it is meant to be.